All right, Bijan, this is take two for you and I. Of course, we recorded a video yesterday at the Wizards practice facility going through their offseason and the trades they made. We talked about Kelly Olynyk, and then they made another trade, and they traded Kelly Olynyk. So all the irony of him playing for the Wizards after the history that he's got with the franchise, it was all for naught.
I think Will Dawkins and Michael Winger have to be on Wizards Twitter to some degree because as soon as that trade was made, the entire Wizards Twitter world was like, "We don't like this guy. Get him out of here." And then they did like 2 days later. So it worked. It worked. I mean, good for Wizards Twitter for making it happen. You don't have to root for Kelly Olynyk in a Wizards jersey.
It was going to be weird seeing him in a Wizards jersey, but instead he joins a list of guys who are technically Wizards who never actually played in a game. That also includes Chris Paul, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Leandro Barbosa. I threw this out on Twitter. People aptly mentioned Sadiq Bey is one of those guys. Mike Bibby, a lot of people said that. He actually did play in 2 games, so Mike Bibby does not count. He did suit up for the Wizards, but he was not here very long. But we wanted to talk about the other moves the Wizards made, and we wanted to focus primarily on the trade for Cam Whitmore because Wizards fans are really excited about getting Cam Whitmore, and I'm excited to cover him, to be honest. I mean, he's a really entertaining player. He is a really good dunker. He's a great shooter. He's super athletic. I think he is going to up the entertainment value of the Wizards and make them just more interesting to watch. So what was your reaction when you heard the news that they were trading for him?
It was a really buy low, high reward potential move for the Wizards because they only got him for 2 second-round picks, right? And Chase, I'm sure you remember when the Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta said the way to build a Super Bowl contender in the NFL is to just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Get as much young talent as you can, see what holds on. And the NBA teams are doing the same thing, and that's what Will Dawkins and Michael Winger are doing. And with Whitmore, it's interesting because he in DC is going to have a way bigger opportunity to actually play. You can't really get minutes on the wing in Houston, the number 2 team in the West last year, unless you're like an all-star caliber player, right? So Whitmore didn't really have an opportunity there. He started 3 games last year for them, and I have his numbers in front of me. They are unbelievable. So in 3 games as a starter last year, he averaged 25 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. This is what gets me. 58% shooting from the field, 55% shooting from 3, and a true shooting percentage of 70.6. So he is incredible, or at least he showed that he was incredible when he can actually be on the court. So I'm really excited for him. I think having a young talent like that actually get to spread his wings in DC is a great thing.
Yeah, you mentioned buy low. The Wizards only traded 2 second-round picks to get him. He was a first-round pick 2 years ago. And for Wizards fans who have not heard of Cam Whitmore, he's a 6'7 wing. He just turned 21. And he played at Villanova, and everyone thought he was going to be a top 5 pick in a year that the Wizards had the 8th overall pick. He fell unexpectedly. News broke the morning of the draft that he was probably going to fall, and the Wizards ended up drafting Bilal Coulibaly instead, but they liked him, and now they have both of those guys, so it's pretty cool. Through 2 seasons in the NBA, he's averaged about 9.5 points per game, 3 rebounds, 44% from the field, about 36% from 3. But what's pretty incredible is that those were his numbers last season. For his career, he's averaged 11 points per game in 17 minutes per game. So this guy can really fill it up. And I think it's just a smart move by the Wizards to get another young guy with a high ceiling, with a lot of upside, because you just never know when those guys are going to take leaps. Look at his teammate last year, Amen Thompson. Look at Dyson Daniels, what he did in Atlanta. And it always seems like a good bet to trade for a young player who's already shown promise in the NBA as opposed to trading for a draft pick, because you've seen that they have had at least some success in the NBA. You could build off of that. In the finals, we just saw Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Tyrese Halliburton. Those are 2 obviously very extreme examples of that. But I wonder if Cam Whitmore could be sort of like a Jarrett Allen acquisition for the Wizards. The Cleveland Cavaliers had a successful rebuild, and they showed that it's really hard to do that solely through the draft. If you can be nimble and aggressive and acquire pieces in other ways, as they did with Jarrett Allen and as they did to a greater degree with Donovan Mitchell, that could really help your cause and sometimes speed things up.
Absolutely, and it's kind of interesting that the Wizards now have a logjam on the wing, not just of wing players, but of young wing players who need to develop, right? They got Keyshawn George. They have Cam Whitmore now. They have Chris Middleton, who's going to take up a couple of minutes at the veteran spot. He's on an expiring deal. But you have a bunch of these guys. A.J. Johnson's a guard. He's another guy who's going to need to get minutes. You have a bunch of these guys who I'm really excited to see how they perform together just as much as how they grow individually. Because what if Cam Whitmore and Keyshawn George really work well together off each other on the court? It'll be interesting to see how these young pieces on the Wizards kind of grow together this season. Minutes are going to be hard to come by, but that'll breed a lot of really good competition in the locker room. And these guys are competitive. Like Bub Carrington is a competitive guy. He's going to be handling the ball a lot. He's already had a really good relationship with Trey Johnson, as you and I saw yesterday when we were there. So it'll be really fascinating to see how Cam Whitmore fits into that puzzle. And I'm really excited to see him actually get an opportunity to show Houston, like, hey, if you would put me on the floor a little bit more, this is what I could have done for you. But he's returning home. He's returning back to Odenton, Maryland, where he came from. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops this year.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in Houston who think he's got a ton of potential. They just didn't have minutes for him. I was at the Summer League last year talking to a Rockets reporter, and they said that they think he's like a Tracy McGrady type talent, where Tracy McGrady began his career in Toronto and had shown promise, but it wasn't until he left Toronto that he really became a superstar. So maybe Cam Whitmore can follow that track. I mean, we probably got to keep his expectations in check to a certain extent. He just got traded for 2 second-round picks. He scored a lot when he's been given an opportunity, but, question marks for him coming into the draft were, can he play make? Can he pass? Can he defend? He's probably going to have to do those things to keep his role in the Wizards rotation, but certainly there's a path to minutes because he's not behind Amen Thompson and Tari Eason as he was in Houston. He's not on a team that's expecting to go on a deep playoff run, and therefore the stakes are higher. And also, he has as much offensive talent as anyone on the roster. The Wizards really focused on defense to lay a foundation through the draft, right, with Michael Winger and Will Dawkins since they took over the front office in 2023. So Cam Whitmore could end up being one of the more talented scorers on the roster. So what do you think are reasonable expectations? Like, not to give Wizards fans a reality check, but just like set the scene for what they should expect.
I think it'll be tough for Cam Whitmore to dominate the wing room off the jump because Keyshawn George is here. He's already built a rapport with Brian Keefe in the front office. That's a rapport that Cam Whitmore is going to need to build going into the season. I'm sure Cam Whitmore's already been on the phone with Brian Keefe and getting to know each other and everything like that. So it'll be fascinating to see, but I think reasonable expectations would be give Cam Whitmore until like December to really pop off of the scoring sheet because, like you said, the wing room is just so crowded already. Keyshawn George is going to need minutes. Keyshawn George might start off the jump because he's already been in D.C. Him and Chris Middleton could be that forward room. Bilal Coulibaly is another guy who's going to need a lot of minutes. So Cam Whitmore is going to come off the bench to start. After that, it'll be interesting to see how he pairs with that second unit. Because to me, that second unit is going to be guys like A.J. Johnson, Keyshawn George, Corey Kispert will probably be on that second unit. So how does he work in tandem with those guys? And if he does do well, I can see double-digit scoring for him by the All-Star break. It'll just depend on how many minutes he gets, and that'll entirely depend on how well he works with that second unit. Rebounding will be a big thing for him. You and I talked about this yesterday in our now tossed away Kelly Olynyk analysis, where Alex Sarr needs to work on his rebounding, and Kelly Olynyk wasn't that solid of a rebounder for a center. Cam Whitmore's a good rebounder. He averaged 8 rebounds a game on the wing in Houston last year as a starter. So if he can be a good rebounder, that to me will be the biggest pathway to him to getting more minutes. It's like they say in the NFL, you get on the field via special teams. And in the NBA, if you can be a second unit guy who can defend, score, and rebound, you will get minutes.
Yeah, well, one thing we know won't be an issue for him is his motor and aggression on offense. That guy attacks the basket. Like he plays angry. And that's one of the reasons why I really like watching him play is because he's so athletic and he's so aggressive that if you're like, slow footing it one night, he's going to catch you by surprise and probably throw down a poster dunk. So I think, again, the entertainment value for this team is going to go up. It's going to be fun to watch. But you alluded to the fact that he's also a local guy. He's from Odenton, Maryland. He started Archbishop Spalding High School and grew up around Annapolis. And as he explained at the draft combine 2 years ago, when we thought he was a possibility for the Wizards, he actually grew up a huge Wizards fan. This is from the archives. Watch this video and what he told Chris Miller about growing up a fan of the Wizards.
The crib, so I've been going to the games since I was a little kid. Just having that memory is definitely a special place, I have in my heart. Just going to games with my dad. But that's the crib, so I gotta represent and just know that Washington Wizards, still have this, such special place in my heart. I think.
You said you used to go with your dad. Do you have a fond memory of a game or a player?
Not games, it was just like after school. He would just buy the tickets, be like, surprise me with the tickets, just, go to the game, stuff like that. It was just any game, it doesn't really matter.
Who's your favorite player
growing up? Bron. So, yeah. But, I used to watch John Wall going to the games. when Darren Williams was in the league. That's how long ago I was going to the games, the Wizards games. So I mean, Darren Williams, he was one of those guys I was looking at too. I thought he was pretty good.
It's obviously a play for anybody.
Yeah.
Have you ever even given a thought of putting on a Wizards uniform, playing for a team you're worth watching?
Yeah, of course. That's home, DMV, and it's nothing like playing at home. So I mean, the fans definitely, I hope so, would be excited to have me. Maybe we'll see if they pick me, but yeah, we'll see the time goes. Only God knows.
So first of all, the dad angle there is really cool, right? Surprising your kid with tickets after school. And that's not the only evidence we have of him being a Wizards fan. He also tweeted this picture of him actually getting an autograph from Marcin Gortat
Which
when he was a
Gortat
kid.
retweeted too.
Which Marcin Gortat retweeted. And it's funny, we were talking to people who work for the Wizards trying to sort of nail down when that was. And they were guessing it was like 2015, 2016 based on the jerseys. And that sort of clicked in my mind. Like, I wonder what Cam Whitmore thinks of Kelly Olynyk. If he was that age and he was a Wizards fan, then what happened against the Celtics probably affected him. But we don't have to worry about them being teammates anymore. So, yeah, what'd you think about that Gortat picture? And as a second question, both you and I grew up Wizards fans. So I know you went to, certain events and got autographs from Wizards players. Who were some players you got autographs from as a kid? And then I'll share some of mine.
Great question. So the first question, the Gortat picture, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great that Marcin Gortat actually acknowledged it and was like, welcome to DC, because Wizards fans are just enamored with Marcin Gortat. They still love him to this day. And it's kind of funny because that era of Wizards, 2014, 15, 16, where that picture was taken, that's right when I was ending high school, going into college. And that's when I was going to a lot of Wizards games. So there's a chance that me and Cam Whitmore passed each other in the concourse at Capital One Arena, then the Verizon Center. So that's kind of funny to think about. And he probably saw a lot of really electric, like John Wall, Bradley Beal era Wizards games back in that day. And then to answer your next question, great question on the autographs. I went to a Wizards draft party one time when I was like 10 years old, I think, when they unveiled those gold jerseys that I still have a very soft spot for. If you want to bring that back, Will Dawkins, if you ever watch this video, it's a good jersey to have.
I liked them too. A lot of people didn't, but I liked the gold jerseys.
I thought they were cool. And then the Zephyrs jerseys were also pretty cool. But I got Gilbert Arenas, I got Antonio Daniels that night, Brendan Haywood. They had a couple of Wizards legend there, like Bobby Dandridge was there. Phil Chenier was there, so I got him. One time when I was at a game, actually, when I was like 8, I went to courtside after the game because my dad was like, let's just go down to the court and see if like any players are hanging out. Maybe you can get an autograph. And I got my ticket signed by 2 people. One of them was then Wizards play-by-play guy Steve Buckhantz. And then on the other side of the ticket, I don't want to butcher this name, but it was that 7-foot center from China named Yi Jianlan. Yeah, Yi Jianlan. So I got a ticket at my house in McLean, my parents' house. That's Steve Buckhantz and Yi Jianlan on both sides of it. So that's one of the like kind of throwbacky, kind of funny references to old Wizards.
That's hilarious. I'm a little bit older than you, so I can go back to getting autographs from like Juwan Howard at a Heckinger's and like Brent Price and Calbert Chaney when I went to go see a Bullets game. But then, I was a fan of the Wizards. I got Antoine Jameson's autograph one time. I think it was at the Washington Auto Show, and Brendan Haywood and Juan Dixon. And I ended up working with Antoine Jameson and Brendan Haywood later on. So that was pretty bizarre, just full circle for me. I'm sure it's been the same thing for you growing up. One more
story for me is that one time I got tickets to a then Charlotte Bobcats game down in Charlotte when I think I was like 12 or something. And I went down to the court during halftime, like during warm-ups at halftime. And the security guards were cool with me like standing under the basket, even though that's not where my seats were. And Caron Butler was like shooting some free throws by himself before the rest of the players came out. And Caron Butler noticed me, and he was like, hey, what's up? Because I was wearing a Wizards jersey, and I think I had like some Wizards face paint on or something. And he came over and he signed my like notepad before continuing his workout. And I was like, whoa, that was so cool. And then I got to meet him later in life, so it was cool. It was a good moment.
Such a nice guy. He was my favorite player at the time. And then like 10, 12 years later, I'm actually hosting the Wizards pre- and post-game show. Phil Chenier's next to me, and Caron Butler's on the screen. We're talking to him. It was absolutely surreal. A few stats before we move on from Cam Whitmore. Few analytics. You can check out my story on monumentalsportsnetwork.com and in the Monumental Plus app. Last year, he was 4th in the NBA in points per touch. So he was very efficient at scoring once he got the ball. The only guys ahead of him were Norm Powell, an all-star, Kristaps Porzingis, and Jaren Jackson Jr., 3 guys who have either been all-stars or were all-stars this year. And then this goes back to the entertainment value. Last year, he had 7 dunks where he jumped at least 35 inches off the ground. and that is more than every player on the Wizards roster combined. And he only played in like 51 games last year and 827 minutes. So like the guy who led the Wizards in those types of dunks was Bilal Coulibaly. He played like 1,100 more minutes than Cam Whitmore did last year. So you just never know when this guy's going to throw down a big dunk because he can absolutely jump out of the gym. Before we wrap this up, did want to address CJ McCollum and Dillon Jones as additions because, knock on wood, unless they're traded an hour from now, we expect them to
I don't want to do this video again. The 2 is enough.
So why don't we start with CJ McCollum? What was your reaction when you heard that he was coming to Washington?
Good pickup, and I thought it was interesting because he does sort of fill in that production that Jordan Poole leaves behind in that trade. You got a vet leading the backcourt, really good outside shooter, shot close to 39% from deep this past year. Another veteran to mentor the young guys. I'm really excited for him to mentor specifically Trey Johnson because you got 2 shooting guards, one going into year 9, I believe, one going into his rookie year. How does that mesh in the locker room? Trey Johnson, if I were him, I would be taking notes on everything CJ McCollum says as a bona fide scorer in this league. So a good pickup, and he picks up a lot of that production left behind by Jordan Poole. What did you think about it?
Yeah, a lot of the same things. I mean, the shooting percentage, that's really going to help. The Wizards with the least efficient offense in the league last year, 30th in offensive rating. They take a lot of threes, but they don't make a ton of them. So Jordan Poole had a good shooting year last year, but CJ McCollum is basically a 40% shooter from 3 for his career. He's also, like Jordan Poole, a combo guard, so you got that versatility. And he's also pretty durable. He missed 26 games last year, and he's going to be 34 when training camp opens. But that was an anomaly for him. He usually plays the vast majority of games, and that's always a great skill to have. And I just like the fact, talking about the influence on the younger players, that he's just a smart, crafty player who has had a long, successful career without ever really being the biggest guy at his position or the most athletic guy at his position. Like, he's always had to know sort of the tricks of the trade and not necessarily have like an old man's game, but you know what I'm talking about. Like someone who just like knows how to score even if they're going up against a physical mismatch. And that's something that I think the young guys will have to learn through experience, but maybe they can learn just by watching CJ McCollum.
Did you see that picture of CJ McCollum when he was in like high school or something, when he's like yay big and he's playing against guys who are gigantic and he's just like dribbling around them? You know that picture I'm talking about?
Yeah. And you know who might be able to relate to that is Bub Carrington, because he was like 5'8", 5'9", I think going into like his junior year of high school, and then he had his growth spurt.
And then we asked him about that yesterday. We said, has anybody gotten bigger? And he said, I'm big as blank now.
Yeah,
so a bunch of players in the locker room are getting bigger this year.
There you go. That's what happens when you get young guys who haven't fully grown or filled in. How about Dillon Jones? Kind of like Cam Whitmore, recent first-round pick. Wizards bring him over from the Oklahoma City Thunder, add another young guy to the mix. I'm losing count at how many first-round picks of the last 3 years they've got. I believe it's 9. And then they just added a couple from the Spurs from the year before. So it's like 11 out of the last 4 years. But Dillon Jones, what stands out about him?
I mean, just keep throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Dillon Jones is another athletic wing who can probably get some minutes, maybe in the third unit, because he's going to be behind guys like Kispert and Whitmore on the wing. It'll be interesting to see. And, I'm not looking forward to him maybe scoring double digits or anything this year, but the Wizards will give him an opportunity to play, unlike he did on the NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder. And another thing to remember is that the Wizards sort of have one hand tied behind their back this year with the top 8 protection in the first round of the draft next year. So they need to have a top 8 pick in order to retain it without conveying it to the Knicks. And if that's the case, let young guys get minutes. Let Dillon Jones get minutes. Let Cam Whitmore get minutes. See how Dillon Jones works in conjunction with the rest of the roster and seeing where that goes. What do you think about it?
Yeah, not a whole lot to go off of so far with Dillon Jones in his career. I mean, he played in 54 games last year, but only averaged about 2.5 points, 2 rebounds, didn't shoot particularly well. He's 6'6", 235, 23 years old. He played 4 years in college, but in college, he was like a 20-10 guy, 20 points, 10 rebounds, even though he's only about 6'6". What I like about him is obviously the upside of another recent first-round pick, but also he's got a physical build, and the Wizards had been building a team with a lot of guys who are tall and long and have long arms. I don't think it's the worst thing to infuse the roster with a few guys like Jamir Watkins, who was their second-round pick this year, Dillon Jones, who have more of a physical build that can maybe turn them into more of a physical team long-term while they wait for some of their other young guys to sort of fill out and become stronger. So I think it could change the nature of their defense in particular, and perhaps in a positive way. So we'll see what else the Wizards do this offseason. You look at the amount of young players they have and the roster spots, like more moves are going to come, right? And we got Summer League coming up. That's going to be really fun. We'll both be out in Las Vegas. So if you're a Wizards fan out there, make sure you subscribe to our app, Monumental Plus, and our YouTube page, Mon Sportsnet. We got a lot of Wizards coverage coming your way this summer and into the fall.